is Jacob Sule. Welcome to the Human Rights Cafe. My name is Jacob Sule.
I am Joanna Titus.
There is no one who sits in Geneva or sits at The Hague who says it's 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. No.
Very often the question is, how do you distinguish what people tend to call terrorism from a non-international conflict?
The judiciary is not really a free and fair judiciary as well. A lot of appointees are just proposed and elected by the military, and therefore, we didn't really have a free judiciary system.
And so the first thing that I did when I was elected was actually push for providing free menstrual hygiene products in our school washrooms.
With access to skills, opportunities, and education, children in rural and underserved communities can change their circumstances.
A lot of situations in which armed forces are increasingly expected not only to partake in armed conflicts, but also they're taking over this role of law enforcement operations.
Registered voter keep increasing, then the actual voter turnout keep decreasing. And we hope that we'll be able to change the tide this time around.
My name is Joanna Titus. I'm hosting the show today with Jacob. I'm hosting live from Abuja, Nigeria.
So no matter where you committed, you are going to be prosecuted. I will say that Spain has been famous for being engaged in important judgment. For example, it's the case of the former dictatorship of Chile.
When I grow up, I decide that I want to be elders who can support young people or what they want to be in life.
You work with IAGA, one of the top rated civil society in Nigeria and by extension in Africa. What are your concerns for this forthcoming general election?
We need to say that the jurisdiction of the court and the convention will still have effects over this law.
So the parents are concerned that many of the youths are going out and protesting against the military coup.
The majority of our people do not really recognize the fact that it happened right.
In that conflict, it was realized that women and girls are often disproportionately affected.
If there is one existential threat that Nigeria is currently grappling with, concerns around security.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Human Rights Cafe chart streaming live from Washington, D.C. My name is Jacob Sule. It is a great pleasure to have you all join us once again for an interesting, educative, and interactive session. Today, I have two guests who will be discussing a very important topic with me on social media and online defamation. Festus Ogun. Festus is joining us live from Lagos, Nigeria. Festus is the managing partner at FO Legal. Festus joined us live from the commercial city of Lagos. Welcome, Festus. To all our viewers, please, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the Human Rights Cafe hashtag, and be rest assured that we will pass your questions to our panelists to shed more light to it. Today's topic our conversation is on social media and online defamation. In the age of digital communication and social networking, the boundaries of free speech, reputation, and legal responsibilities have become increasingly intricate. Social media platforms have granted individuals an unprecedented reach and influence, thereby enabling them to express opinions, share information, and engage in public discourse on a global scale. While this connectivity has furthered democratic expressions and diverse perspectives, it has also brought to the forefront complex legal issues, particularly issues containing defamation, libel, and other criminal and civil issues. To navigate the intersection of social media and defamation, it requires a detailed understanding of legal principles to be able to distinguish between truth and opinion. I'm being joined by Festus. Festus, it's a pleasure to have you join us from this conversation. Can you briefly tell our viewers a little bit about your work and what you do in Nigeria as a legal practitioner?
Thank you very much, Jacob, for having me. And it's indeed my greatest pleasure to be on your show once again. I'm a lawyer working on the intersection between human rights and social justice. My practice revolves around issues relating to human rights, social justice, and enthronement of constitutional democracy in Nigeria. So I advise individuals, non-profits, political parties, governments, and companies on issues relating to human rights, environmental rights, privacy, and digital rights. And I also join in here in Nigeria in advocating for the advancement of human rights, rule of law, and constitutional democracy in Africa. Thank you.
So much, Festus. I know I'm very familiar with the very great work you're doing in your organization, and I also wish you the best. Let's quickly delve into the conversation today. For the purpose of those who are joining and do not have a detailed understanding of defamation and libelous comment, can you briefly provide like an overview of what defamation means legally, and also for those who are laymen who don't have a full knowledge of the law, so they can understand the purpose of this conversation today? So briefly, what do you understand, or how do you describe defamation to our viewers who are listening and joining this conversation?
Just simply, defamation is a statement made by a person in respect of another person that is not true or that is false. So
Thank you so much.
when you make this statement, for it to be regarded as defamatory, it implies that, or it means that it must have been published to at least one other person. So if someone has made a statement about me that is not true and that is injurious to my image, then what I will do, how it will become defamatory when that statement is being read by another person that is different from the initial author. So it becomes defamatory that way.
Thank you so much, Festus, for sharing that. I also do agree with you that I agree with your perspectives on what constitutes defamation. So my other question to you would be, for example, are there any legal backgrounds? Are there any laws, or are there any acts that governs defamatory act or defamation in Nigeria? I know you practice extensively in Nigeria. So for the purpose of those who are joining from Nigeria, are there any legal framework that regulates defamation and in Nigeria?
The defamation legal framework in Nigeria is divided into two. One, we have the libel, which is the civil defamation, and we also have the criminal defamation. Under our extant laws, extant tort laws, libel is a civil wrong that can be redressed in the law courts through, filing a lawsuit. However, on the other hand, our criminal law, including the Criminal Code and the recent Cyber Crimes Act enacted in 2015, extensively criminalize defamation or libel, inclusive of social media or online defamation, online libel. So the point we are making is that in Nigeria, under our extant legal framework, defamation or libel, as the case may be, can either be civil or criminal. Under our criminal laws, including the Criminal Code, the Penal Code, and the Cybercrime Act enacted in 2015, libel is a crime. And under our extant tort laws, libel is equally a civil wrong. Thank you.
So much, Festus, for sharing that thought. I know we're currently being joined by Funke. I know she's having some technical issues, but as soon as she's able to sort that, Funke would also share our perspective on the conversation. Festus, let me back up to you. Recently, we've had very damning comments on social media, particularly on Instagram, Facebook, and X now, from young people making very unconfirmed statements and very ridiculous statements about persons, probably because they share different political perspectives and all that. What do you think is the challenge, and how do you think we can address issues of continued defamatory comment on social medias from persons who do not believe or share the same political philosophies with you? What do you think we can do to actually educate people about the implications of their actions and to ensure that people are not being caught up with the long arm of the law?
First, I would say that we need to do more advocacy. The National Orientation Agency in Nigeria needs a lot of work to be done in that respect. Our people need to be reoriented. Our people need to be enlightened on the implications of defamatory publications. However, I think the bulk of the matter, which touches on the dignity of human persons and fundamental rights in Nigeria, is that I think the time is ripe for Nigeria to decriminalize libel. And I say this because of our dossier of human rights violation in Nigeria, how our criminal justice system has aided arbitrary abuse of citizens that have merely expressed themselves on issues that matter. Now, on a daily basis, we experience cases where critics and activists who simply criticize the political leadership of the country or politicians who have run the country aground. We see cases where for merely commenting or for merely criticizing a governor or a senator or the president, the police system in Nigeria would get such a person arrested under the cover of enforcing the defamatory criminal laws in the country. You now see very rich and powerful people oppressing the poor, oppressing vocal and outspoken active citizens for merely expressing themselves using the criminal laws that criminalize libel in the country. I would think that because of the history of our policing system, or in fact, the history of our security agencies in Nigeria that arbitrarily abuse the rights of our people, even on flimsy charges, I think it is ripe. The time is ripe for us to decriminalize libel in Nigeria, so that when anyone feels, oh, I've been defamed, let them go to court and enforce their rights. As a lawyer that represents even journalists that are persecuted for merely publishing the truth, you will see cases where after an investigative journalist review or exposes the rot in the system or issues relating to corruption and abuse of office, the next thing you will see is that the person who has been exposed will go ahead to mobilize the police just to ensure that the journalists are arrested and prosecuted, all on the basis that, oh, under the Cybercrime Act, when you make any publication that is calculated to annoy or that annoys the recipient or the subject matter of the publication, then you can be charged to court. They call it cyber stalking. This is the provision under the Cybercrime Act, that is Section 24, that is being used to persecute journalists and activists in the country. So it is my respectful view that I think we should quickly decriminalize libel in Nigeria, because over the years you've seen instances where the authorities have abused or weaponized that provision just to oppress and intimidate journalists, lawyers, active citizens, and in fact, every vocal citizen on social media. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Festus. Viewers, we're now being joined with Funke Adoye. Funke Adoye is a lawyer and the executive director of OPI Bar. She joins us live from Indiana in the United States. Thank you so much for joining, Funke.
Thank you for having me, Jacob, and hi, Festus. I'm so sorry. I've been having technical challenges, but I'm glad to be here now. Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to join you. We have been discussing about social media and online defamation. I know you work, you do a lot of work around criminal justice reform in Nigeria. Can you briefly tell us about the crux of your work and why you chose to do that kind of work as a lawyer in Nigeria? Briefly.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, so I work as a lawyer. I've been practicing for about 12 years now. I lead an organization called Hope Behind Bars Africa. And I think Festus just touched base on some of the issues that we are trying to address, issues relating to arbitrary arrest, issues relating to unlawful detention and the like. So we've been doing this for awaiting trial inmates and people who cannot afford legal services. We've supported over 8,500 persons. And I actually started the work because my dad was a victim of the criminal justice system. When I began practicing law, I also experienced a case whereby one of my clients was extrajudicially killed by the police just for the other persons who were arrested with him to confess to a crime that they never committed. So I sort of like have a lived experience of what happens with our criminal justice system.
Great thoughts in which you've shared, and I really must commend your work that you're doing back in Nigeria. I know a couple of times I've had to see like the fantastic work in which you're doing, and congratulations, and we're proud of the work you're doing. Now, let me pivot back to you. Festus had taken us through like a background and the legal position on defamation in Nigeria. From your expertise, how do you think you can prove defamation if somebody is being defamed or a libelous or slanderous comments is being made about that person? How do you think you can prove defamation in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, there are a couple of laws that relates to libel in Nigeria. I think the Criminal Code, the Cyber Crime Act, which Festus alluded to a lot. I think the first thing is that you have to show that a false statement has been made, and then you have to show that that false statement has been communicated to a third party. So you and I having a conversation, and I saying something false against you doesn't constitute libel. A third party must have heard that statement, and then I must also be able to prove that there is a fault amounting to negligence, that I intentionally want to make a false statement against you to the hearing of a third party, and that your reputation will be damaged, or I can prove damages that I by virtue of the statement that I have made. So those are the basic principles of proving libel.
Thank you so much. So one other question in which I want to ask you is because I know you do a lot of work around criminal justice, and I wanted to actually get your perspective on this. You know, in this age of social media now, you have people who don't have profile pictures, people who are faceless, permit me to use that word, people who just want to make comments just to spite you. What do you think if statements are posted anonymously on social media? Are there any legal measures that can be taken against the poster, or what do you think can be done in such circumstances?
Okay, thank you. I would say that, I mean, based on the law, first of all, libel is always a little bit hard to prove because you have to, all the four ingredients must exist simultaneously. So you have to prove that the person knows you, the person knows that this statement is meant to defame you, and then you must also prove like damages against the person and the like. So I'm trying to think through in recent times, it's a little bit hard to find an action against people who are anonymous. But then I think that we've also had situations whereby we see, I mean, people like Gist Lover and all these other bloggers out there. We see situation whereby somebody, or rather the police says they found Gist Lover, and then we don't know if it's actually Gist Lover. So for me, I would say that I'm looking forward to when we'll actually be able to unravel issues relating to anonymous libelous instances and the likes, but I don't think we've particularly succeeded in it. That doesn't mean it's not possible, right? That doesn't mean, I mean, if we have the right technology or we have the right willpower, it's very possible. But I think what I want to even piggyback on is how some of these laws are really all about shrinking the civic space, because at the end of the day it goes a long way to self-censor people. So like Festus was saying, when I got in, I, as an active citizen, I am no longer comfortable, or someone else is no longer comfortable just sharing their thoughts out there. Why? Because the government is going to come for the person. I think that if we say we are a nation that respects the human rights of people by virtue of the constitution, then we should look at ways to stop all of these laws that go to shrink the civic space. And the truth is that the government has been coming with a lot of it. So for me, I feel like the question should not be, pardon me, but the question should not be how do we prove libel per se, but it should be more at how do we avoid all these legislations, because at the end of the day they are used to push back on citizens' voices. The government, during Muhammad Buhari's era, they came up with a lot of social media bills. If you remember, during the COVID period, there was this there was this COVID related bill that was going to stop people from meeting together to have conversations for the sake of public health. And then the next thing, they came up with the Cybercrime Act. At every point in time, there's always been one legislation that looks as if it's supposed to help, it's supposed to be for the public good, but at the end of the day, they use it to push back on citizens' voices. So for me, I feel like that's something we must all stand up against. We can have a form of regulation, but not a form of regulation that is only after a particular group of people. That's my thoughts on that.
So much, Funke. I totally agree with you. You have actually delved into the crux of this conversation. I keep using the word death, because of the training thing that's happening right now. Now, let me turn to Festus. Festus, I know you are a very you are very prominent on social media, and then you are very, very vocal when it comes to human rights abuse and litigation process, and most importantly, the overhauling of the judicial system in Nigeria. My questions to you would be that are there some particular peculiarities of social media that makes the implementation of defamatory laws very challenging in Nigeria? Festus, from your work, have you had any cause to what do you think are the challenges to making the enforcement of defamatory law very challenging in Nigeria from your perspective, Festus?
So, enforcement of defamatory laws in Nigeria has not been a problem. It has not. What we have seen is the persecution of citizens by powerful people using the instrumentality of our criminal laws that have criminalized defamation in Nigeria. So, the porous and inefficient system can allow anybody who feel offended by an alleged defamatory publication to approach a police station, give money to the policemen. The next thing, the police will arrest the person, knowing fully well that the justice system is not efficient. The police will ensure that the person so arrested is charged to court, because the person knows, the policemen know verily that the bail administration in Nigeria, especially at the Federal High Court, under which the Cybercrime Act can be enforced, is very tough. You see that they charge the matter to court and they leave the person who is alleged of defamation to rot in jail till maybe whenever Funke's organization go to the rescue of the person. So that's the problem that we have in Nigeria. We have, and that is why I've always maintained the position that all the cynical attempt to regulate social media is simply an attempt to gag freedom of expression in Nigeria. And freedom of expression is guaranteed under Section 39 of the Constitution. But on a daily basis, they are talking about how to regulate social media. And I tell people, we do not need the regulation of social media in Nigeria again. If you read through the Cybercrimes Act enacted in 2015, you would see that we already have enough, if you ask me, we already have enough of regulation in that very law. With that very law, if I make any comments on social media, I can be arrested, because the wording of the law is so loose, and it is very easy to be manipulated, and is very prone to abuse. And indeed, the authorities have been abusing it because they deliberately, enacted the law. So I would not say that there is a problem with the implementation of defamation law in Nigeria. No, I would say that the very problem is the abuse of the defamation law in Nigeria. And the solution to that very problem, in my respectful view, is for us to decriminalize defamation in Nigeria so that citizens can freely express themselves, and those who feel uncomfortable with the expression or the publication made by citizens can approach a civil court for damages and redress and other redress. But to leave it at the whims and caprices of the security agencies who on a daily basis abuse the rights of the people under the guise of enforcing the Cyber Crimes Act is exposing the fundamental right of the people to danger, which I would say would not be good for our constitutional democracy and indeed our humanity.
So much, Festus. There are a lot of thoughts in which both of you have shared, which I totally agree with. And it's very sad to see that people are just being picked up randomly, for just trying to, just ask questions and just try to hold government accountable, which to me stands and remains very condemnable. Now, let me turn back to Funke. Festus made a comment that the government can just pick you up unnecessarily for things that's been done and just go lock you up and even forget you there until people like your organization comes to the aid of such Nigerians or whoever has been arrested. My question to you would be, Funke, from your organization, have you had any experience or have you had any clients who were accused of defamation or at most cyberbullying and were just, arrested unlawfully and just being kept behind bars without having going to the full length of litigation in any court in Nigeria?
Okay. I mean, none that I can recollect. I mean, we've had issues like breach of contract and the likes, but we've never really had to handle something related to defamation and libel. I think that this is a good opportunity to actually share that there's actually been an amendment to that Cybercrime Act. I mean, not many people know this, and we don't know how far the government is going. I mean, the people are going to use it, right? Because it now has a part of the section. Let me read it out. So that section 24 has a part that says for okay, let me read it. The amended section 24 is saying any person who knowingly or intentionally sends a message or other matters by means of a computer system for the purpose of causing a breakdown of law and order, posing a threat to life or thereabouts. Those are the kind of people that can now be liable under that section. Before now, it was really vague. It talked about public order and the likes, and this was amended in March. So we don't know. I mean, we don't know to what extent it's going to be. It's going to be used by the government because I mean, yes, this is a better wording for the section, but our government is very funny. Who determines what is threat to life or what is threat to the society and whatnot? So I just wanted to put that out there because it's not really out there. I think it was some work done by Paradigm Initiative. It's not really out there, so I think it's a way to just put that out there. But back to your question, we've not necessarily had to deal with issues relating to defamation. Most times, the segment of people that we provide support to are people that are really, really poor. And so what we find is petty offenses. People are arrested for petty offenses like laundering, like hawking, prostitution. People are arrested for breach of contract, where actually there was no breach of contract. Maybe there is a civil issue between you and I, and then I just get the police to arrest you and all of that. So yeah, we still have all the cases of unlawful detention, but we've not necessarily had to deal with issues relating to cyberbullying.
Right. Thank you so much, Funke. I think just a couple of thoughts on that. If you're joining us live from anywhere, please feel free to send us your questions and comments, and I'll make sure that each of our guests get to respond to your questions before we wrap down. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about defamation, libel, slander, and we've just been talking about all of these things. Now, for those who are watching, who are probably wondering, oh, somebody has made a libelous comment about me. Somebody has posted something on Twitter that is not true about me. Somebody has published an untrue statement about me that is not true. How do you think for someone like that, what defenses or what remedies are available to them? How do you think if they want to approach the court to seek for redress or justice, what do you think they can do to get this done? So either of you can take the question. Maybe I'll start with Festus.
Yeah, because I was going to say I would like to know if Festo, I would like to know the advice Festus is going to give his client because our
Well,
justice system.
I would say that the option when a person is defamed or there is a libelous publication, I would not advise anyone to go the criminal route because it will be subject to abuse. I would rather advise, in fact, it can be messed up if you take it to the police to prosecute for you because usually in Nigeria, the police would prosecute. So usually it will be messed up either by their inefficiency or by their failure to pay attention to details. It's likely going to be messed up. But if you really desire results, then I would advise that first you can if you think that maybe the publication was the wrongful publication or the libelous publication was made in good faith, you may do a letter of demand demanding retraction, public apology. That could just settle it. Or maybe the person has realized the mistake. The person make a public apology and retraction of the publication. If otherwise, you can file a lawsuit in court to demand for damages, public apology, and retraction of the publication. Get justice on time. And sometimes you would also see that some of these people who genuinely want to uh, challenge or redress libelous publication go through the criminal route because they believe that with pursuing a criminal complaint, they get faster results. The police would arrest, they will charge the person to call the person who will be behind bars, uh, maybe before who behind bars comes to the rescue. But then when you file a civil suit in a place like Lagos, even if properly managed, because of the inefficiency of the system, you might be having to deal with that for some 2 years, 3 years.
Thank you so much, Festus. I know we're beginning to have some technical glitch there. I know the conversation about reforming the judiciary system or the criminal justice system will be a conversation for another day. Funke, let me turn back to you. A lot of people are watching and they are kind of curious about the work that you do in your organization back in Nigeria. So my question to you would be, what is your motivation behind all of these? And for people who would like to reach out to you to support your work, what is the best way for them to reach out to you? Because quite frankly, you're doing a whole lot of work. I could recall when I was back in Nigeria as a law student, we had time from Osun State University where we went into prisons, based on this legal clinic work. We saw people who had stolen something something as cheap as $100 and don't have legal representation. So, for people who want to support your work or know more about your work, can you tell us about how to reach out to you and how to be of support to your work as well?
All right, thank you so much, Jacob. I mean, it's an immense, it's a great problem we're dealing with, and I think that all the conversations we've had today just goes to show how important we need to work around reforming our criminal justice system. What's the motivation for the work? Like I said, my dad was a victim of the criminal justice system, and currently we have a lot of people that are in prison who have no business being there, majorly because they are poor or majorly because they don't have anybody to stand for them. So, Hope Behind Bars, we actually go for I mean, there are so many people who probably need legal services, but we ensure that we start with the people in prison who don't even have anybody to speak for them. So in terms of supporting us, you can first off check out our website, www.hopebehindbarsafrica.org. And then we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're online, we're everywhere at Hope Behind Bar. You would see our GoFundMe link on our Twitter pages, on our website, and you also see the donate button to support the work. Let me just add that it's interesting how you find that no amount is actually too small. There was someone I represented him when I was very active back in 2019, and he had been in prison for about 5 years, arrested by SARS, the usual SARS, while he was coming back from school, and literally forgotten there. And it only took one appearance from us to get him out of prison, because when he was charged for armed robbery, but he had been going to court for about 2 years, and out of the 2 years, the prosecution had stopped coming to court. Sadly, the judge could not discharge him because he didn't have a counsel. The prosecutor wasn't interested in the matter, so it just took one appearance from us, right? And if I remember back then, it took me less than 2,000 naira to transport myself to the prison. And this guy has, I mean, back so far so good. He's been doing tremendously well. So no donation is too small. Our criminal justice system needs a lot of reform. We need to decriminalize a lot of crimes like defamation. There's no reason why we should be talking about defamation or libel as a crime at all. It's a you and I thing. Let's talk man to man or woman to woman. Let's go to the civil court if you can withstand that. Yeah. So I think this is a very, very important conversation, and I'm looking forward to when that part of the Cybercrime Act will be totally taken off. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
So much, Funke. I really appreciate the time in which you have spent today in talking to us about your work. And please, viewers, if you would like to support Funke's work, please feel free to follow them on social media and also go ahead to check their social media handles. I think my other question would be for Festus, which is to ask Festus. Festus, I know you have other engagements going on in Nigeria. What are your final thoughts on social media and defamation?
I can barely hear you.
Yeah, Festus, can you hear me now? While we try to sort out the technical issues from Nigeria, Funke, what would be your final thoughts to viewers who are watching on this conversation today?
I mean, let's try as much as possible not to be part of the problem. Our criminal justice system is overlogged with cases that have no business being there. So somebody defames you, somebody commits a libel against you. What Festus suggested is exactly what I'm going to do if you come to me as a lawyer. I would write a letter asking you to retract your statement, giving you, I mean, time and all of that. And if that doesn't work, if the person is willing to pay, I would say sue the person in a civil court. But it's so easy for us to talk about how the system is really, really bad, and then when it comes to us, we are quick to call the police. We want to show our power and all of that. My last words is, let's try, in our own little way, not to be part of the problems that we see. Right? Let's try as much as possible to be the change. And even though we have those laws there, still criminalizing defamation, libel, and the likes. If you have a libelous case or whatever it is, I would suggest that you just stick to the civil route. Or maybe, I mean, with Choma's case, for instance, we see that it would have even been better if the matter hadn't gotten to this point. So there are some things that I'm a lawyer that would advocate for ADR, alternative dispute resolution. Go to get a mediator, get someone to just broker peace between you and the person instead of going the police route.
Totally agree with you, Funke. I am a very big fan of alternative dispute resolution rather than going through litigation as the first punch that you bring on. And thank you so much for speaking with us, ladies and gentlemen. I've been speaking with Funke Adeoye, lawyer and executive director of Hope Behind Bars, who joins us live from Indiana in Washington, in the United States. Thank you so much for joining. I've also been speaking to Festus Ogun, managing partner at FOI Legal. Festus joins us from Lagos, the commercial city of Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, viewers, unfortunately, we are unable to take your questions and comment because we are running out of time. But it's been a great pleasure talking to you all, and I look forward to the next episode of this conversation. And you all stay safe there and have a great weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the Human Rights Cafe. My name is Jacob Sule.
I am Joanna Titus.
There is no one who sits in Geneva or sits at The Hague who says it's 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. No.
Very often the question is, how do you distinguish what people tend to call terrorism from a non-international armed conflict?
The judiciary is not really a free and fair judiciary as well. A lot of appointees are just proposed and elected by the military, and therefore, we didn't really have a free judiciary system.
And so the first thing that I did when I was elected was actually push for providing free menstrual hygiene products in our school washrooms.
With access to skills, opportunities, and education, children in rural and underserved communities can change their circumstances.
A lot of situations in which armed forces are increasingly expected not only to partake in armed conflicts, but also they're taking over this role of law enforcement operations.
Registered voter keep increasing, then the actual voter turnout keep decreasing. And we hope that we'll be able to change the tide this time around.
My name is Joanna Titus. I'll be hosting the show today with Jacob and hosting live from Abuja, Nigeria.
So no matter where you committed, you are going to be prosecuted. I will say that Spain has been famous for being engaged in important judgment. For example, it's decade of the former dictatorship of Chile.
When I grow up, I decide that I want to be elders who can support young people or what they want to be in life.
You work with IAGA, one of the top rated civil society in Nigeria and by extension in Africa. What are your concerns for this forthcoming general election?
We need to say that the jurisdiction of the court and the convention will still have effects over this law.
So the parents are concerned that many of the youths are going out and protesting against the military coup.
The majority of our people do not really recognize the fact that we have this right.
In that conflict, it was realized that women and girls are often disproportionately affected.
If there is one existential threat that Nigeria is currently grappling with, concerns around security.